Welcome to WorldXplain. Since the very dawn of human consciousness, we've stood in the darkness, looked up at the vast, star-filled night sky, and asked the most profound, heavy questions imaginable. Why are we here? What happens when we die? How are we supposed to live together? Well, today, this explainer is going to unravel the magnificent, complex, and deeply profound mysteries of 15 global faiths. We're going to embark on this massive, cinematic journey across time and geography. We'll be exploring exactly how different cultures across the entire globe have attempted to answer those ultimate questions of existence. So get comfortable and settle in, because we're about to explore the very fabric of human belief itself.
I really want you to let this question sink in for a moment. What drives humanity's ancient, unyielding search for meaning? If you picture a slow, cinematic pan over ancient, starlit desert ruins in your mind, you can almost feel the weight of history. Across absolutely every continent, throughout every single era of human existence, we have consistently reached out to connect with the divine. It's an extraordinary testament to our nature, really. We don't just survive, we desperately seek purpose. We build these massive, awe-inspiring monuments, we compose sacred texts that endure for millennia, and we shape our entire lives around invisible, yet incredibly powerful truths.
And just look at the animated chart on screen right now. Watch those glowing neon slices expanding in the darkness. The sheer, staggering scale of these beliefs today is honestly hard to even comprehend. We are talking about the vast majority of the entire human population. Christianity sits at over 2 billion followers. Islam has over 1.9 billion. Hinduism encompasses over 1 billion people. These aren't just dry statistics on a chart. These are billions of individual, complex human lives. Billions of people shaping their daily realities, their ethics, their families, and their entire communities around ancient foundational teachings. To understand the complex world we live in today, we literally have to trace where all of this began.
Chapter 1. The Abrahamic Foundations.
Okay, let's transport ourselves back in time to the ancient Middle East. Picture historical footage of sweeping deserts and ancient stone cities where an incredibly powerful, game-changing idea first took root, the concept of a single, all-powerful creator who takes an active, highly personal interest in human history. And consider the sheer weight of this number on screen, over 3,000 years. Imagine realistic ancient grains of sand slipping slowly through an hourglass. That is how far back we trace the deep antiquity of faiths like Zoroastrianism and Judaism. Before the great empires of Rome or Greece had even reached their peak, early visionaries in Persia and the Levant were already laying down the spiritual bedrock that would eventually influence billions of us today.
This spiritual bedrock built a breathtaking evolutionary timeline. Watch how this glowing gold line draws across the dark map here. We start over 3,000 years ago, with Zoroastrianism and Judaism planting the very earliest seeds of monotheism. Moving forward, we see Buddhism emerging in the 5th century BCE over in India. Then, around 2,000 years ago, Christianity blossoms out of the Jewish tradition in the Roman province of Judea. And finally, jumping to the 7th century CE, Islam emerges from the Arabian Peninsula. Looking at this timeline animation, it represents a breathtaking spiritual evolution, showing exactly how these ancient, tiny seeds grew into massive global movements across entirely different eras of human history.
At the very dawn of monotheism, we see some truly beautiful parallels and differences. Let's look at this comparison visual. On one side, it's like a flickering eternal flame, Zoroastrianism. Originating in ancient Persia with the prophet Zoroaster, it views the universe as a profound, ongoing cosmic struggle between good and evil. It's a battle between the supreme wise lord Ahura Mazda, representing light and truth, and the destructive dark force Angra Mainyu. Humans are actively called to tilt this cosmic balance through good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. On the other side, picture ancient Hebrew scrolls. Judaism centers on one completely indivisible God who made a sacred covenant, an absolute unbreakable agreement with the patriarch Abraham. This was later reaffirmed through Moses, who received the Torah, the foundational text of Jewish law. Both of these faiths are incredibly ancient. Both are foundational. But while one focuses on a grand cosmic battlefield, the other focuses on a sacred, unbreakable legal and spiritual covenant with a single creator.
Now, building directly from that Jewish tradition, we reach the foundations of Christianity. Imagine a majestic, slightly melancholic choral hum in the background as we discuss this. Around 2,000 years ago, a man named Jesus of Nazareth preached a deeply radical message of love, forgiveness, and mercy in Roman-occupied Judea. He actively challenged the powerful elites of the time and taught that absolutely everyone has immense value in God's eyes. The central, world-changing turning point for Christians is the belief that after being crucified, Jesus rose from the dead. This miracle, the resurrection, is seen as the ultimate sacrifice offering total redemption for human sin. The sacred text of this movement, the Bible, weaves the Old Testament together with the New Testament Gospels. Over the centuries, this singular, powerful movement branched beautifully into three main paths. We have Catholicism, with its grand global traditions guided by the Vatican. Then there's Orthodox Christianity, preserving highly symbolic ancient rituals and sacred icons over in Eastern Europe. And finally, Protestantism, which emerged later in the 1500s, heavily emphasizing a highly personal, direct reading of the Bible.
Centuries later, monotheism found another incredibly powerful expression. Islam began in the 7th century CE, when Muslims believe the Prophet Muhammad received the final, complete revelations from God, Allah, through the angel Gabriel. These profound revelations formed the Quran. Now, the word Islam fundamentally means living in submission to God's will. And this beautiful, grounding submission is structured by what we call the 5 core pillars. Imagine elegant Arabic calligraphy forming these 5 pillars out of gold dust right on the screen. Step 1 is the absolute foundational declaration of belief in one God and His messenger. Step 2 grounds the believer's daily life through prayer, 5 times a day. Step 3 mandates giving charity, actively enforcing social justice, and caring for the vulnerable. Step 4 requires fasting during the holy month of Ramadan to cultivate deep empathy and physical discipline. And finally, Step 5 is the Hajj, the profound, moving pilgrimage to Mecca that a Muslim must make at least once in their lifetime if they're physically and financially able.
Following the Prophet Muhammad's death, the Islamic community faced a really pivotal question regarding leadership, which ultimately led to 2 main branches. As you can see on this softly glowing branching infographic, Sunni Muslims, who make up the global majority today, emphasize community consensus. They believe that leadership should fall to the most capable individual chosen by the community itself. On the flip side, Shia Muslims hold the deep, unwavering conviction that divine guidance and leadership should have rightfully remained within the Prophet's own family line. But listen, what is truly vital to remember here, the biggest takeaway, is that despite this historical schism, both branches absolutely share the exact same profound core of Islamic devotion, the same Holy Quran, and those exact same 5 pillars we just talked about.
Okay, so we've seen faiths intensely focused on a singular God, historical covenants, and eternal judgment. But it really makes you wonder, how do ancient Eastern traditions view the soul entirely differently? Imagine a slow, dramatic fade to black, accompanied by a deep, resonant gong sound as we travel eastward to find out. Chapter 2: Awakenings in India. Journeying to the historical cradle of the Indian subcontinent, picture a slow, cinematic zoom on the misty Ganges River at dawn. The spiritual focus completely shifts inward. We move entirely away from a legal covenant with an external creator, and we embark on an intense internal quest for liberation from the endless churning wheel of existence. Now, Hinduism is incredibly vast. It's not like the others. It has no single founder and stretches back over 3,000 years. It's this gorgeous, diverse fusion of spiritual paths. Some followers worship one main deity, like Vishnu or Shiva, while others honor many. Yet an underlying universal soul, known as Brahman, connects absolutely everything. The fundamental problem in Hinduism isn't sin, it's samsara, the endless, exhausting cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So how do you actually escape it? You do it by achieving moksha, or ultimate spiritual liberation. And you reach that moksha through karma, deeply understanding the universal law of cause and effect, and by rigorously fulfilling your dharma, which is your specific moral and cosmic duty in this current life.
From this exact same cultural soil, a completely different path emerged. Picture a highly realistic AI visual of Siddhartha Gautama, a sheltered young prince meditating quietly beneath a softly glowing Bodhi tree. After finally witnessing the undeniable, harsh reality of old age, sickness, and death outside his palace walls, he sought a way to end human suffering, eventually awakening as the Buddha. The Buddha taught something radical, that suffering is directly caused by our craving and our stubborn attachment to a false sense of self. In fact, a massive core concept here is anatta, the realization that there is actually no permanent, unchanging soul at all. By following the strict ethical and mental practices of the Eightfold Path, a practitioner actively seeks to extinguish this craving entirely. The ultimate goal here isn't getting to a heavenly kingdom in the sky, but reaching Nirvana. That is a state of absolute, profound insight, inner peace, and total liberation from the cycle of rebirth.
As Buddhism naturally traveled globally, it gracefully adapted to new cultures, forming three magnificent main schools. Imagine a map where a soft, golden light spreads from northern India all across Southeast Asia and Tibet. Theravada, which took root in Southeast Asia, maintains a really strict focus on monastic life and the very earliest teachings of the Buddha. Mahayana, spreading through East Asia, places a massive, beautiful emphasis on supreme compassion. Here, enlightened beings actually choose to delay their own final peace just to stick around and help others achieve it. And then Vajrayana, high up in the snowy mountains of Tibet, weaves in rich esoteric rituals, powerful spoken mantras, and deeply complex visualization practices. Though their outward methods look remarkably different, their ultimate compass always points toward extinguishing suffering and cultivating deep inner wisdom.
India also gave birth to two other dramatically contrasting faiths. Looking at this comparison, picture a Jain monk carefully avoiding harm to insects right next to a bustling, warm, and generous Sikh langar kitchen. Jainism, which began around the same exact time as Buddhism, believes absolutely every living thing, even microscopic, invisible life, has a soul. They practice ahimsa, or nonviolence, to the most extreme degrees imaginable. We're talking about monks sweeping paths before they walk or wearing masks just to avoid accidentally inhaling insects. It is a path of intense, rigorous asceticism and internal purity. Then, jumping centuries later, Sikhism was born in the 15th century. Founded by Guru Nanak, Sikhism fiercely rejected the rigid caste divisions of its time. It focuses entirely on one formless, universal God. Rather than extreme isolation or asceticism, Sikhism is deeply practical and community-driven. They host free community meals called langar, specifically designed to absolutely shatter social hierarchy and promote total, unconditional equality and service to the oppressed.
So we've talked a lot about escaping the cycle of rebirth, but here is a thought-provoking pivot for you. What if ultimate harmony isn't about escaping the world at all? What if it's about perfectly, seamlessly balancing it right here, right now?
Chapter 3. Harmony in East Asia.
Imagine a slow, sweeping pan over mist-covered mountains in ancient China. Here, the spiritual focus moves away from metaphysical escape, seeking instead a flawless, grounded equilibrium in the present, physical world. Ancient China actually produced two beautifully complementary philosophies to achieve this balance. Let's look at how they compare. Taoism, attributed to the legendary sage Lao Tzu, teaches us to live in total unison with the Tao, the natural, unseen, effortless rhythm of the universe. It tells us not to force life, but to flow around obstacles, to be flexible like water. It's gentle, yet incredibly strong, emphasizing inner balance and letting go of our rigid ego. But right alongside it, growing up in the exact same culture, is Confucianism. Founded by Confucius around 500 BCE, this system argues that real harmony doesn't come from just flowing like water, but from rigorous, ethical, highly structured social behavior. It heavily emphasizes filial piety, which is a deep, abiding respect for parents and ancestors, and relies on 5 highly structured key relationships to keep society functioning smoothly. Together, these two traditions form the dual heartbeat of traditional Chinese culture. One provides the spiritual, free-flowing poetry of nature, and the other provides the sturdy, ethical scaffolding of human society.
Moving further eastward across the sea, we encounter Shinto. Picture a striking, bright vermilion torii gate standing peacefully in a dense, dark, quiet forest. Japan's indigenous religion is fascinating because it has no single founder and no central holy book whatsoever. It evolved completely naturally from early agricultural practices and a profound, deep-seated respect for nature. At its very core is the veneration of kami. Now, kami aren't exactly all-powerful gods in the Western sense of the word. They are more like sacred, unseen spiritual presences that permeate mountains, rivers, animals, and even our ancestors. In Shinto, the boundary between the ordinary, everyday world and the sacred world is always incredibly close at hand. The goal here isn't to master or control these natural forces, but to live a life of deep purity, absolute sincerity, and immense gratitude in total harmony with them.
Chapter 4. The Modern Synthesis.
As we move into the modern era, and rapid globalization connected diverse cultures faster than ever before, these absolutely fascinating syncretic movements were born. Imagine documentary footage showing diverse, modern faces and global crowds seamlessly blending together. These traditions attempt to unify humanity's scattered spiritual puzzle pieces into cohesive, healing frameworks. Looking at the table on the screen, let's break a few down. Spiritism, which is massively popular in Brazil today, blends rational, almost scientific inquiry with Christian ethics, using mediums to actively promote our soul's moral evolution across multiple lifetimes. Then over in Vietnam, a faith called Cao Dai emerged in the 1920s. It literally attempts to unify Eastern and Western faiths into one giant structure, drawing on figures as incredibly diverse as the Buddha, Jesus Christ, and even the French author Victor Hugo. And in Japan, Tenrikyo emerged through a remarkable visionary woman named Nakayama Miki. It shifts the focus away from sin entirely, teaching that humanity's original, intended state is the joyous life, and that spiritual and physical healing comes from simply removing selfish uses of the mind. All three of these faiths represent a uniquely modern longing to bridge deep divides and heal a fractured, chaotic world.
But the ultimate, arguably most expansive expression of this unificatory drive is the Baha'i Faith. Founded in 19th century Persia by a man known as Baha'u'llah, this faith proposes a truly staggering idea, that all the major world religions are absolutely not competitors at all. Imagine a realistic visual where the faces of history's great spiritual messengers dissolve into a unified glowing globe. Instead of competing, the Baha'i believe these religions are simply progressive chapters in a single perfectly unfolding divine curriculum. They believe that God continuously sends messengers, Moses, the Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and eventually Baha'u'llah himself, to guide humanity according to the specific evolutionary needs of their particular era in time. The ultimate, driving goal of this entire faith is nothing less than complete total global peace, removing all forms of prejudice and uniting all of humanity together as one single family.
All the world's major religions come from the same divine source and form part of a single unfolding story. Just let that quote sink in for a second. Regardless of whether you view these traditions through the lens of history, sociology, psychology, or profound personal faith, you honestly cannot deny the breathtaking beauty of this shared human endeavor. Every single religion we have explored today, from the ancient fire temples of Zoroaster to the deep, silent meditations of the Buddha, all the way to the modern, global visions of unity in the Baha'i Faith, represents a timeless, desperate, and remarkably beautiful human longing for connection, for justice, and for ultimate truth in a very mysterious universe.
We've traveled across thousands of years today, and we've explored the deepest, most sacred beliefs of billions of people. But ultimately, the journey is personal. As we fade to a dark, modern aesthetic void, I want to leave you with this. Which ancient truth resonates most with your own search for meaning? Thank you for watching World Explain. See you in the next video.